Your events and experiences, keep a notebook with you. Just a small one, jot something down, maybe expand on those notes later. Your notebook is your friend, and I'll keep saying that. Your notebook is your friend. To keep writing notes to yourself and adding the things to your list. Jot down as many events and as life experiences as you can think of. Again, they may not all make the cut and make it into your story, but I'm sure as you write down certain things, it'll trigger off your memory of something else. So that as you build up your list, you're reinvigorating your memory, and you can start to frame what your story is going to be about. Note the really important ones, and also note the little things that add colour and depth to your story. The events to think about, just some of the things, maybe something happened in or about the place that you lived, maybe something that involved a favourite uncle or an aunt, your mother or your father, your brother, your friends, something from your working life. Perhaps there's a remembrance about a child. There's always interesting stories about children when they're growing up, because it's just exciting watching them exploring their environment, and there's always some interesting things to record. It might be a particular sporting or a cultural achievement. It might be a work achievement. It might be something you achieved in the arts. It could be a triumph or a tragedy. You may have to handle those tragedies in a particular sensitive way, depending on how they involve others. But that's something to think about in the ethics when you actually put together your story and who that story is going to be made available to. What did you like doing and what did you not like doing? People want to know about you. They want to get under the skin. They want to get under the photograph. They want to get under the name, the birth date, the marriage date, and the date of death. They want to know, if they're reading your story, what makes you tick. They want to get a sense of you. I mean, the greatest thing is, if any of you have done any genealogy, is to actually find something about the person that you're researching that brings them alive for you. Now, if you're writing a memoir about yourself or about another family member or about a situation, you can leave something that will help people get that buzz of excitement when you have passed over, that will bring that situation alive for you. And it's a great gift to leave to your family or friends. Perhaps you've got a hobby, a particular hobby that you've been very much involved in. If it's important to you, put it on your list. Maybe you've travelled extensively, or maybe you haven't travelled extensively, but there was some particular travel journey that you took, that there was something in particular that happened that's interesting that you think should be passed on. Perhaps it's a memory of when you were growing up. I grew up in a small town in the far north of New Zealand. Looks very much like Ettalong. It's perhaps why I live in Ettalong today. But there are particular things about that town that I know and that I will pass on to my family, because it's changed a lot. I mean, I went to my grandmother's funeral and this lady came up to me and she said, "Are you Greg?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Your great-great-great-grandfather and mine came out on the same boat from Scotland. If you need anything, you come and see me. We go back a long way." Now, I haven't lived in that town for 30 years, but I'm sure if I went back there and tapped into those connections, I could tap into those connections going back to my great-great-great-grandfather, because we do go back a long way. So those sorts of things give people a sense of what the place is like and what you are like, what your connections are like, and how you lived your life. What major events occurred during your life? Of course, you've got the real biggies. You've got war. You've got, the political assassinations and, all the death and destruction that you can think of. You've got volcanoes going off. You've got building harbour bridges, you've got freeways, you've got the opera house being built, you've got all those sorts of things. If there's something in particular that happened when you were alive or in your particular place where you were, or that affected you or that you took particular note of, then put it down and tell people about it. Because if it was important enough for you to remember, it must have had some impact on your life, and therefore it's probably interesting to somebody else. Anything can trigger a memory. One thought leads to another. For example, this is a recipe book from my grandmother. It's one of those sort of recipe books that's handwritten. There's bits of paper, there's newspaper cuttings, there's all sorts of things in there. But there's also letters from other family members, which on the back of Flossie's best cake has been written. So I can read the letter of Flossie's best cake and look at the recipe as well. So there's all those sorts of things. There are bills for groceries. You know, the sort of grocery stores where you used to go to and sit up on a stool and dictate your list to the grocer who wrote it down in longhand. Then off you went, and then later on the grocer boy came round on one of those funny bicycles, or maybe on a horse and cart or in a small van, and deliver your groceries. So there's all of that. So that is kind of a family history for me. Sketch out your memory initially. Don't worry about detailing it. If something pops, put it on your list. If something pops a little bit more, then write a little bit more about it. But put it down there so that you can come back to it. Don't necessarily sit down and try and write it all out at that particular time. Thoughts and beliefs are important. What were the major issues that made you think? You know, was it the Vietnam War, for example? I mean, was that something that affected you one way or another? Were you for it or were you against it? Those sorts of things that polarised society may or may not have had an effect on you, but if you had a particular strong belief about something, then those reading your stories would be interested in that. It gives them more of a sense about what you were. Have you seen a particular movie that's made an impact on you? Or have you read any particular books that made an impact on you? Again, it all goes to building up a picture of who you are or who the person is that's writing the story. Religion. Do you have a particularly strongly held religious belief? You know that over time people's belief systems do change, and again, people are interested in you. What were your beliefs? I mean, did you believe in a Christian God or a different God? What were your beliefs? Was it strong belief? Did you go to church? Was it something that you were made to do or you willingly went to? Did you progress in that belief over time? Your philosophies in life, and what are they, sort of fit into that as well. Did you have any particular beliefs or particular viewpoints on somebody? Somebody that's close to me, when they asked her what religion she was, she said, a greenie. That's what she believes in. She believes in ecology. That's her religion. That's how she views things. So when somebody reads about her history, they'll find out about the passionate way that she believes in it and what she did in order to live out that belief. Again, readers want to know more than you at a surface level. They want something that's going to give them an insight into you and how you are. This is one of those little blue and white store notes, again, for one of the grocery notes that I was talking about. Use memory prompts. Memory prompts can be anything and everything. As I said, this recipe book's a memory prompt for me, because I can remember certain things. I can remember certain cakes. I can remember certain events that are recorded in there, and also when I look through, there's clippings from magazines that I can vaguely remember I can remember the era, not that particular magazine. So it prompts certain memories, and I can smell that kitchen and taste that food as strongly now as what I could when I was actually doing it. So anything, it could be a family treasure, you know, something as simple as a little box that belonged to a grandmother or something. It could trigger off a memory of them, something for you to record. It could be a little doll. I happened to pick those up in North Thailand, so it reminds me of a particular trip that I took. Or an evening bag that came from another female member of the family who was a very stylish lady. So anything like that can set off certain memories. An old resume or a CV. I mean, I've been trying to cull mine and I picked something out and it set off a memory for me of about 25, 30 years ago that I'd completely forgotten about. So any of those, anything and everything can be a memory. And of course, talk with family and friends, because everybody remembers things from a different viewpoint. And I'm sure they'll be more than happy to tell you what they think if you ask them something. How you manage that's up to you, but and how you approach that, it depends on the closeness of the relationship. But people are generally pleased to be able to help you remember a family gathering or gathering of friends or a particular event, and it may just help your own memory and give you some different viewpoints. Recapping the points, clarify your purpose for writing your memoirs, create lists and word pictures of people, places, events, thoughts and beliefs. Use memory prompts to help you. And remember the mantra, my notebook is my friend. And anybody who's set out on this sort of memoir writing exercise usually fills up a few notebooks before they actually sit down to start writing the story.